back for another day of CCL, and we've got some great matchups ahead of us. I'm your host, Katie Bedford, joined by my wonderful co-host, Cruisin' again, for another day of Call of Duty. And this time we're starting in the Southeast with Shenandoah Esports versus Florida Gulf Coast. And there's kind of a lot to break down here, right, Cruisin'? There's kind of some unknowns, intangibles happening with both of these teams that make them a bit hard to place.
Yeah, it kind of makes it a bit hard to predict as well who's going to come out on top of this match, because both these teams have had very similar starts to their seasons where they've gone through their original stages. Things have looked really good against kind of the bottom teams, and then they go up against top teams and get shut down in a way. Neither team really getting significant wins against top teams. And then going up against the bottom teams, they're just kind of rolling over them. So it's one of those situations where they're a very middle of the pack team. And I think that Florida Gulf Coast, the only reason you see this roster in the top 25 and not Shenandoah is just because they were rated so highly off the start of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, the start of the season doesn't necessarily play into where you might end up later down the road, but let's take a look at that head-to-head for both of these teams, specifically how they've been faring in Stage 2 as well. And I think the big talking point for us here, at least when it comes to Florida Gulf Coast, is that they are missing some matches due to rescheduling. So there is a bit of uncertainty in what their actual overall scoreline is compared to what we're seeing out of Shenandoah.
Yeah, so the sample size in Stage 2, it's just not the same size like what we've seen from Shenandoah, like you were saying. But looking at overall in just Stage 2, it is a 3-1 start for Shenandoah. And for Florida Gulf Coast, it is 1-1 for them to start. But this is the overall record for on the season. You can see Shenandoah coming in with 13-3 record, and then FGCU with that 10-2 record. Both are very good. Both teams have been very solid in a lot of modes. But you can see FGCU, the one thing about this roster is not only are they getting wins, but they're also getting wins in a little bit more of a significant way. You can see they've lost way less maps than the side of Shenandoah.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And you look at especially that hard point, it is a clear indicator when you're seeing double digits on the side of Shenandoah in hard points and S&Ds, almost in controls. That is an indicator that their matches are going the distance into those map 4s, map 5s, whereas there might be a little more concise finishes coming out on the side of Florida Gulf Coast. That could maybe mean that we're seeing something similar to what we saw yesterday in a team like Shenandoah that maybe has trouble closing out. Might have trouble clinching those close maps to be able to secure themselves victories, deny those map 5s. But I think as well, you take a look at this, I think FGCU, you were telling me before we went live that that they maybe, how are they faring against kind of those top teams when we look at both of these? How do they do against kind of, you know, their top 25, but how are they doing against the top?
Yeah, so that's kind of the reason why they've started to fall inside of our top 25. Like they've hit a higher number than this week in 24, and coming into this week they dropped down to 24th because the last few weeks they have gone up against those other top 25 schools, and it has not gone well for this roster. They played up against Barry at the end of Stage 1. They got 3-0'd by Barry. They went up against UNC last week, a team that's not even inside of the top 25, got 3-0'd by UNC Charlotte. Like, these are matches where you expect this team to be coming out on top. Now, note, UNC Charlotte probably team very much so on the cusp of top 25, but definitely a matchup that you didn't expect to see FGCU go into and get 3-0'd by. So that's the one thing with this roster right now is they're good. They're just not good enough to go up against those top teams at the moment, it feels like.
Yeah, so we'll really see where that shakes them out. But let's take a look at our home roster, starting things off with Shenandoah on the screen. We've got Toxic, Helpless, Sid, and Stevo. And when you look at this team, I mean, I think one of the takeaways with them, neither of these teams have secured a playoff spot, but you take a look at them, this team did win against one of those top 25 teams. They took out Mox, number 19 team, 3-2. But the concern with them, I believe, Cruz, was, well, yes, maybe you can strike against those better teams, but you're struggling in hardpoint.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? Like, you look at their overall Stage 2 standings, and their standings are looking fantastic in terms of search and destroy and control at a 4-1 and a 3-1 map count. But you look at that hard point, and it's glooming for them, and it's a 3-4 at the moment. It's not very good. And when you're going up against those really, really top teams, you need to make sure you're stepping up that mode. You can't always be relying on those 2 3s and 5s to be able to win you series. I mean, it's great when it works, but once you go up against another team that knows how to play search and destroy and is able to take one of those maps off you, you need to make sure that hard point is just as strong as everything else is.
Now let's take a look at the other side, the away team, Florida Gulf Coast University, and their roster. Kirchie, Beeser, Tippin, and Justin. I see some Justin fans in chat, but I mean, this is that team we said, right? You bumped them down a little bit in the rankings, but what do you expect from them when you're looking at this lineup?
I mean, it's a very good lineup, right? Like, it's a team that you expect to see talented. You got Captain Kirchie, the #1 player on this roster. Justin's the main submachine gun player. Beeser and Tippin running in the ARs and the flex role. It's a very good roster. It's a team where you expect to be a lot better than what they have been in the last couple of weeks. They went 1-1 in their first week of Stage 2, and like you said, they haven't played their second week matches due to rescheduling issues and conflicts like that. But after going 1-1, this roster actually also just acquired Zarin, a coach to come in. He was a coach last year for the St. Clair Saints. He helped that team get to top 25 last year. So that's a great improvement for this roster, I think, as well. He should come in and do great things for this team.
Well, and that's been kind of the wave in the last couple years in particular for Call of Duty, is bringing in these coaches and finding the value in coaches to bring out the best in a roster, as you just said. And well, for Zarin, we already know that he has some success, right? Taking St. Clair into the top 25. He clearly has the skill set to be able to do this. We'll just have to see now if he can actually transition that over and get Florida Gulf Coast a little bit higher into the rankings, reverse that fall down. But let's now take a look over at what we can expect out of our maps. Let's take a look. Bocage Hardpoint. We missed it yesterday. I wasn't able to cast one, but this is where we're going. It'll start with Mayhem Cruise and then a bit of a slowdown. Berlin, then Triple Tuscans.
So clearly Marco didn't listen to me when I asked him if the casters could have a veto and we could veto out casting Bocage Hardpoint, because this map sometimes, man, it is so hard to follow. A couple weeks ago on Alpha, I didn't even realize a player get dropped out of the lobby because there's just so much chaos going on this map. So you know it's about to be crazy starting off here between these two teams that know how to slay as well. So it should be a fun map between the two of these rosters going into that. And then obviously that Berlin Search and Destroy, it's really going to slow things down. But I think the big thing looking at this is that triple dose of Tuscan to close things out, because if they split maps 1 and 2 like we're kind of expecting them to, with probably the hardpoint going the way of FGCU and the Shenandoah being able to take that S&D, that control on Tuscan really could end up being the swing map and who ends up deciding the winner of the series. Right,
I agree. And especially, I mean, that control can become even more pivotal if you get one of these teams stealing away the strong mode from the other one, Shenandoah. If they can take this map 1 strike first and get this Bocage, or FGCU, who have been struggling in Search and Destroy in Stage 2, if you can maybe steal that Berlin and then you can lock up something like a control, I agree. That map control going to be very pivotal for who is given the momentum for the latter half of this series. But it all starts with Bocage, it all starts with chaos, and maybe that chaos will work in Shenandoah's favor, because as we've seen time and time again in Bocage, you can do everything right in the map, but it might not necessarily help you.
Yeah, I was literally about to say the exact same thing. Like, 100%, I think that's a great map pick for Shenandoah, but it's just because if you go into this map, it's not one of those maps where you 100% need to be fundamentally strong and hardpoint. If you just slay out the other team, there's a good chance that you can come out and win this map, because, I mean, we even seen it during the major. Scump dropped a 4-piece on this map, and it alluded to literally no time. So, like, this map is chaos, and it's who shows up in the moment, and we'll see who ends up coming through here. And you can already see off the start of this map, Shenandoah is making a very big push towards the left side, trying to flip these spawns out.
That's good. I mean, no surprise that there's a contest, a lack of time here in P1. It's right out in the open. You can attack from essentially every single angle. So Shenandoah getting a little bit of early time never hurts, but it is the jockeying, as you said, for preparing for P2. And Toxic, he's had a good start so far. Nice little kill to put him at 3-1. Tries to make it 4, but Justin cuts him shy as we get into the final scrap time, which looks like it'll go the way of Florida Gulf Coast. But the spawns for Shenandoah, they will be set up on next.
FGCU looking like they want to try to hit this through the bottom side of the map to try to break these spawns, get into this hill as quickly as possible. Oh, and what a beautiful break from the back. They're going to flip the spawns out, but player 6 wins the fight in the back, so this still has some kind of momentum here for Shenandoah. You still have some players in and around this hill where you can still reinforce from the side. You can try to break back into this hill, and neither team really getting any significant spawns at the moment.
No, it's really just a fight over those spawns. Shenandoah, not the setup they needed to be able to watch their backs, as they did a great job initially getting onto P2 and got taken apart, but really it's a fight here over Barn, and finally Florida Gulf Coast stabilizes to take a lead 25-13, but how long can they hold on to it? As Sid, they're able to get kills on the point and break back in, stabilize those spawns. The only problem, Cruz, is, well, it's just scrap time at this point.
Yeah, and scrap time should go the way of Shenandoah here. You'll get a small little lead at the end of this one, but the main priority and the main focus is going to be going towards this P3 hill. And Katie, you know what? Something I just noticed as well is through our first 2 hills, we already have a minute shaved off that game clock as well. Something we're going to need to keep our eyes on as this game goes longer and longer, because this map is one of those maps where it really can end up going down to the time towards the end of the game.
Just bocage things, exactly what you said. The one map where you always want to pay attention to the overall game clock, and for good reason. Now a scrappy fight happening here on P3. Shenandoah trying to get control, but Tippin with 3, mowing them down to help them stabilize on the point. Continue to try and lengthen out that lead as much as they can, as there's only about 30 seconds here. And on a 5 spree that got cut just shy of being able to get that streak. Would have been very helpful on a map like this, but Justin now just waiting for the push, trying to figure out spawns, where exactly Shenandoah is coming from, and unfortunately not the direction he was looking. They flood in, able to take the point. But again, I feel like we're into this problem where Shenandoah, you don't want to get caught stuck in picking up scrap time. And well, maybe you don't have to. Sivo with a 4-piece clears out the point and now pushes into barn to make it to P4.
I mean, exactly to your point, though, they kind of do get stuck pushing for that scrap time at the very end of that hill. Everybody makes their push in. They try to do it, and what they don't notice is that one of the players on FGCU makes the push all the way through bottom river, flips the spawns out, and now Florida Gulf Coast, who had a great setup and a great start to that last hill, picked up the first 30 seconds, have now gotten a full rotation over towards New. They can now start to lock down a good amount of time here, and this is a great setup so far here for Florida Gulf Coast. It's 20 seconds. Shenandoah hasn't even sniffed towards this hill yet.
And I mean, the good news is if you get too caught up in scrap time, you're not particularly far from any new hill on this map. But as you said, if you get kind of tunnel visioned into that scrap time, it's not going to set you up for success. Florida Gulf Coast now looking to have a 30-point lead here as Justin watches over the point. He's going to have to be careful. A push from Shenandoah toward the right side of the map. He'll be able to get 1, puts him on a 4 spree.
Wow.
Snaps to make it 5. Now 1 away from streaks as Florida Gulf Coast have locked down barn. Will be able to secure that scrap time and tip it. I like this. Clay just cutting short any pushes here toward the final hill and just stalling out Shenandoah. They've done such a good job, Cruz, of kind of just stopping pushes to the new point and locking down the current hill.
Shenandoah, though, they still do hold on to those right-hand side spawns for the time being, but as soon as 4 kills come in for Florida Gulf Coast, it's actually going to work out pretty well because you can just pin them in the back. You can trap them back here. Exactly what you see Kirchi doing at the moment. Unfortunately, not able to find anything more than 1, but what that does is just completely slows down the reinforcements. And again, at the start of a hill, the first early 20 seconds, going the way of Florida Gulf Coast, the way that they're rotating, the way they're setting up for these hills, it's leading to a lot more success than the scrap time that you're seeing Shenandoah pick up at the end.
And it's just this constant staggering. Shenandoah finally able to get onto the point, and with 20 seconds left, this is much needed time for them. Florida probably not going to invest too much more time worrying about this hill, just getting prepared for the second rotation. But I really think that the problem here for Shenandoah, right, they're just not able to get these clean rotations, get on the hill initially, or be able to break particularly early. Granted, it's not out of hand yet. It's still 112 to 88, but I want to see a clean initial hill control from them.
Yeah, it's definitely one good hit away from making a comeback into this game, but you're absolutely correct. Very much so, they're struggling on rotations and really locking down hills. But the reason they're also not getting these big breaks early on in the hills is they're not finding that 4 down that you need sometimes to be able to get into the hill. You're just there's always one player from the likes of FGCU being able to rotate and being able to pick up that final kill, winning out that last trade to get inside the hill, not allow you to get a significant amount of time here. Shenandoah, though, once again on P1, just putting full focus on the left-hand side of the map. They get the spawn flip, so now they will have the setup that they want here for P2. And really, right now, all it's about is pushing out, making sure that nobody on FGCU can push through and really get into their way when rotating over towards this next hill.
And Toxic doing everything he can on a 3 spree now at 21 and 17. But Shenandoah, this is going to continue to be a struggle for them when you have half of your team fairly significantly negative in Sid and helpless. They'll need to be able to find their footing through this map to be able to assist Shenandoah and trying to make a comeback here. Perfectly possible, of course, but FGC now trying to push them off this point, and Kirch able to get the kill to do so right back onto the point. And despite Shenandoah having spawns, the contest is here, and I like this play. This positioning out of Breezer right at the very back will be taken down by Toxic, a nice little 2-piece, but a good position on that tank to just be able to watch over the hill.
And Tippin throughout that entire start of that hill was so annoying. He was basically just sitting in the side, down towards river, just shooting all the Shenandoah players in the back in the side, just making it uncomfortable for them to feel like they could just sit in the hill and look forward and pick the FGCU players off spawn. And this is exactly why you're seeing an FGCU break towards the back half of this hill. They can break in, they can get a hold onto the remaining bit of this time. And honestly, I need to see an adjustment coming from Shenandoah at some point here. Like, you're getting broken, it's fine, but you need to start to rotate towards your next hills. But they hit scrap again with 10 seconds left, and you're only going to have one player on rotation right now towards the new hill, and that's player number 6 and Sid.
Well, Sid, he's going to have to hope to fight for his life. I actually like this play. Go back, try to anchor those spawns, do something great for yourself to get support onto this new hill. But, well, the spawns aren't necessarily going your way, and how long are you going to stay here before you realize you're just wasting time? But hey, you get a kill out of it, and that's a good way to start. Now, Florida Gulf Coast, they're going to realize he's here. Beezer able to get a triple, all headshots. Takes him out, clears out the point, and, well, Sid, unfortunately, that play not really translating into anything particularly helpful for them, and now the kill feed consistently. Florida Gulf Coast as they look to stabilize and lengthen this lead back out to something a little more comfortable. Now 30 plus, and Beezer give him 5. Looking for his 6th, backs off. This is where you always want to watch. How aggressive do these players continue to play when they're close to those streaks? And in his case, I'd make the wise play, right? Just backs off, doesn't want to reach out necessarily, just soak up some of that time, let the kill come to you. But that kill feed looking very, very green.
Oh, and that's full streaks there now. He finds the 7th in a row, so that's full streaks for Florida Gulf Coast, and that streak could be used to so much effect on that P5 hill that we're going to next. So we'll see if he ends up investing it there, but a 50-point lead now growing here for Florida Gulf Coast. I love the way that they played that hill towards the back half of it. They didn't over-invest towards the spawns once they realized they lost it. They just sat in the hill, played it from the front, picked all those players off spawn over and over again. And it was really hurting the Shenandoah roster in that situation. But Shenandoah, they get to answer back a little bit here. They go towards the next hill. They get a decent setup here, and it's going to be Steve-O inside the hill, the only player really in and around the hill at the moment here for Shenandoah, just trying to stay alive, trying to play his life. And you know what? This is probably their best hold that we've seen so far here, Katie.
Yeah, no, this has been excellent, and it really starts with Steve-O getting that triple, giving the time for his team to get onto the hill and stabilize. Toxic picking up 2. We saw Sid as well picking up 2, trying to reduce that margin now at 14 and 20. But Florida Gulf Coast, they always find a way to break into these hills, and now as they start to just continuously accumulate any of the scrap time Shenandoah doesn't get, it's going to make it ever more difficult for them to try and reduce this deficit. We have yet to see one single full hold from them. If they can do that, well, it's anyone's game, but as you said, always keep an eye on that clock as well. We're close to being under 2 minutes.
FGCU, they do hold on to the spawns, but they are pretty far away right now, and you've got a decent setup here for Shenandoah from the top side of the map. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the glide bomb at some point in this hill get invested, but they actually find 2 kills in succession, make that 3 now. So glide bomb doesn't even need to be used. They get a full 4-man break onto the hill, and they completely spawn out Shenandoah from where they want to be.
What a great nade coupled with the push. Kirsch able to get 3. Sets them up so beautifully to take this hill. Some trades will leave it uncontested for the time being now as Shenandoah and Toxic with another double trying to get back on. But this is where you said you got to be careful about over-investing in that scrap time. You don't want to get tunnel vision on those remaining 10 seconds because look at what's happening across the top of this map now. You see 2 members of Florida Gulf Coast trying to prepare for the next rotation. And, well, the kill feed now all green once again. They'll be the first ones on the hill for this 3rd rotation, and they're trying to set themselves up early for success on P2.
It's a great start here to P1 here for Florida Gulf Coast, though. I mean, you don't even necessarily need to win it here on this hill, but it's still definitely possible at the moment. You do get a good break come in from Shenandoah, but like you said, Katie, I mean, their main focus right now is just holding on to these left-hand side spawns. It's all they want to do at the moment, so they can try to put this game away here. Anytime you get here on this P1 hill is just extra for yourself to try to close the game out on P2 in our next hill, but this is a great job from Florida Gulf Coast. They're just keeping everybody on Shenandoah spawning up on the right-hand side and continuing to grow this score up little by little, and they have not broken those spawns yet.
Beautiful pistol into the hip fire to keep things scrappy on the point, and, well, that's all there's left now. 10 seconds again here on P1, and take a look at the spawns for Florida Gulf Coast. They're 19 seconds away from being able to close out map number 1, put themselves in prime position in this series, but, well, you gotta pay attention. You got Sid over in that tank position in the top right of the map, trying to be the nuisance that we saw out of Florida Gulf Coast in the last rotation, and makes the choice to push forward. And, well, you kind of have to, because, Cruz, there's only 5 seconds left for the win for Florida Gulf Coast, and unfortunately you're getting picked apart, but Toxic with a big break and a kill to at least stagger the hill.
Yeah, you stagger it for a small bit of time. Shenandoah can get in, but the big issue is you still don't hold on to those spawns. So Florida Gulf Coast, they're spawning close, and they can just reinforce the hill. They can still win it here.
They can still win it, and well, with that kill feed, a nice double out of Justin and Tippin. They're looking to do just that, but Steve-O staying alive. Trying everything he can to extend this out, push it to the next hill. But unfortunately, you have a potential collapse coming in from Florida Gulf Coast. Beaster strikes first. They fall onto Sid, and, well, unfortunately, no one close enough to the hill to really be able to contest. The final tick comes in, and that'll be Florida Gulf Coast striking first, as we kind of expected, right, with that hard point strength.
Yeah, it's exactly what we expect, right? I mean, this team's not 15-3, or sorry, 12-2 in hardpoint for absolutely no reason, right? This roster, very talented hardpoint team. It's really just the other modes where they have struggled in stage 2. So we'll see how the rest of the series goes for them. But this one, not a big surprise here. And I mean, look at the even strength effort that you get out of the top 3 players on FGCU. I'm sure we'll get the stats to pop back up at some point, but there was 2 players with 38 kills, 1 player with 37. I mean, you can't ask for a more well-rounded effort out of a roster there. And I mean, just the way that they played off each other's backs throughout that game. Yes, it was close. Yes, it was scrappy, but it's because we expect the map to be like that. But they just controlled that game so many times throughout it that it just really kind of felt like Shenandoah was never in the driver's seat.
Yeah, it kind of felt like the difference between organized chaos and just chaos. And that was really where Florida Gulf Coast was able to thrive. Let's take a look at those stats one more time. See why Florida Gulf Coast, they were able to have such a strong showing. I mean, take a look, Kirsch, at 147 in the hill time, almost pushing 2 minutes. But as you said, I think really well, Cruz, all of them a great team effort, all of them positive.
Yeah, and when you look on the other side, you kind of have Sid slacking a little bit, 19-29. Not the worst game, not the best game. I think the crazy stat is the fact that you have 2 players on Shenandoah with 40 deaths for both of them. The fact that Toxic had 80 engagements on the map, that might be one of those situations where, yeah, it's great that you're getting a ton of engagements, but you don't want to be dying 40 times for yourself there. You might need to slow it down a little bit. Like you kind of said, Katie, it's not just about overall chaos. It's about controlling the chaos and having a good amount of kind of stabilization on your back when going into a lot of these team fights. And it just felt like every single time we went into trades there, it was just FGCU able to come out on top at the end of the trades, leading to more time for this roster. We can take another look at our maps and modes, and FGCU 250 to 206 on that map 1. But as we know, we're going to the strength now of Shenandoah. That maps 2, 3, and 5. The search, the control, and the surge. This is where we really need to see Shenandoah start to pop off.
Yeah, they're going to have to win this search and destroy. Clearly, when it's coming to those respawns, in particular the hard points, they're going to be falling shy. But we saw it when they took out Mox earlier on. They did win in a 3-2. That was the control and the search and destroy. So they can certainly make it happen a second time around. But I agree, they're going to have to be decisive in this Berlin. They're going to have to be more cohesive in punishing any of the mistakes that we see out of FGCU. And I'm not even sure necessarily on the play style as well. If FGCU, are they going to be hyper aggressive? Can Shenandoah play around that more effectively? We're going to have to see how Berlin plays out. But I agree. When you look at this, I know it's easy to say must wins, but that really feels like what this S&D is, in particular considering Florida's struggles, as you said, in stage 2.
Yeah, 100%. This really is a must-win here for Shenandoah. And I mean, I hate to keep kind of harping on stats, but you're 0-2 right now for Florida Gulf Coast and Search and Destroy. Yes, you know what? You picked up a coach last week. Maybe that coach might actually be able to help out your Search and Destroy, so we really haven't seen FGCU yet maybe at their best in S&D. But the fact that Shenandoah coming into this one is 4-1 in S&D in stage 2, that's against top-tier competition. This team is very, very good in this mode. I mean, even in their I can't exactly remember who it was too. It was one of their losses earlier on in the season. I think it was FSU. Even in their loss to FSU, they lost all the respawns, but they won that Search and Destroy. Didn't even just win it. They 6-0'd them in Search and Destroy. So very clearly a strong map combination and a strong mode here for Shenandoah. So to go into this one and to call it a must win, I don't think is out of the question, Katie.
Well, yeah, and especially you look at it, so you bring in that coach if you're FGCU, and you have to ask identify what the problems are. Why are you struggling in S&D? Granted, again, there's a sample size difference here with matches that had to be postponed, but is it a communication thing? Is it a not having a clear game plan thing? Is it not being comfortable with your offenses, your defenses, those mid-round adjustments? How are you choosing to play on this map, or facilitating the best strengths of the players when they're in Search and Destroy? I mean, sometimes there's a big comfort difference level in how you feel in a run and gun on something like a respawn or a hard point versus the more methodical, slow pacing of what's going to happen in Search and Destroy. So I agree. It's going to be a must win for them, but I think Berlin offers a lot of counterplay. It's a very large map. There's a lot of things that you can do to influence how it's going to play out. So they can certainly do it, especially, I mean, hey, if they bring the firepower like what we saw in map number 1, maybe they can just gun their way through this map.
I mean, yeah, you never know. FGCU, if they just bring the straight firepower, like you're saying, that's definitely a possibility. I think the big thing that FGCU is going to have to combat with in this, though, is probably really good strategy from Shenandoah. I don't think you 6-0 a team like Florida, like Florida State University on a map of Search and Destroy without being very talented and being very prepared to go inside of Search and Destroy. I think if you're Shenandoah coming into this one, I think it's all going to be about your mid-round adjustments, trying to make Florida Gulf Coast as uncomfortable as possible going into this game because, yeah, FGCU, they can prepare as much as they want, but the simple fact is they haven't looked that great in S&D yet. We'll see how they look here today, but it's really going to come down to just kind of playing some baits, throwing bombs, stuns, whatever you want towards one side, maybe running towards the other, just doing weird things on the map to make FGCU keep them guessing, keep them as uncomfortable as possible going into this game. That's how you can find success here. It's been working for you all season long if you're Shenandoah. So don't change up the strategy now. Keep it going. Keep your team guessing. And that's how you can come away with a map number 2 win here, entire series up at 1-1.
I love that. Discomfort can be so crucial in Search and Destroy, especially if you are, as you said, going up against a more methodical, structured team. If you can put them into a zone that they're not familiar with, they haven't practiced for, or really had much reps in, well, that's where you can start picking apart the mistakes. They'll have to be snappy, Shenandoah, on those mid-round adjustments if that's what Florida Gulf Coast is able to accomplish. But, well, they'll be starting on offense first, and Steve-O flies in, gets tagged off, forced it back off. In the meantime, though, trades back and forth. Shenandoah, though, able to get 2 to Florida's 1. The bomb plant going down fast on A, and they will be able to get away safely as the rotation now from the remaining 2 players from Florida Gulf Coast starts to come in. Tipping in the back, and, well, Toxic finds an easy shot to get him his first kill of the game. And, well, Beasts are there with a sniper. Yeah, this is not going to be too much fun. Have fun with that.
Yeah, not the time you want to have a sniper in your hand. Obviously, he's got that in his hand off the start of the round to try to get one of those picks, but doesn't find anything. And unfortunately now, in a 1 versus 3, he will get 1, but I mean, with 15 seconds left, the likelihood of him being able to get this kill and be able to find the bomb defuse not very high, and yeah, he's just dancing with the double right now. This is not going to turn out into a good round here for the likes of FGCU. He will find the second, but just no time left on the clock, and that's an easy first round there for Shenandoah. And a good amount of trades off the start of that round really work out well for them in their favor, and that's what ends up giving them the numbers on site. They get the bomb down, and once you leave a sniper in a 1v3, it is just never an easy situation to clutch up.
I actually don't hate that play from him, though, because it does seem like he was playing more to be able to pick up some kills and end the round on a 2 spree, maybe set himself up for some success with a streak down the line if he can get there. But, I mean, he's going for the shot at the end, seeing if he can connect. Clearly comfortable on the sniper, so I'm actually excited to see if he can continue that momentum, maybe get some nice early shots. And, well, he spots one, and that's why sniper callouts can be so valuable. Now they are going to know that Shenandoah has at least 1 player around that A bomb site, maybe send the intel, start pushing toward B. But Florida, they're going to want to be decisive in this movement, make that cross, try and take control of at least one of these bomb sites, because the last thing you ever want to do, especially on a map as big as Berlin, is waste too much time. And, well, Steve-O, a first blood is definitely going to help them in being able to work on shutting down this bomb plant.
Yeah, and Steve-O actually has the sniper out for himself as well, so we get a little bit of a sniper battle here. And I think the big thing off the start of that round is you do see that player cross, but what that kind of tells you is that there's more players over towards B. I was kind of expecting, when you only saw 1 across, FGCU to make this rotation over a little bit quicker, because now you don't have that same information. Now you kind of need to go into this site blind, and it's going to be a very tough time for you to get inside of this site. And you can already see Helpless trying to do his thing inside of the right corner. Toxic's going to push him from the back, and it's just easy trades now for Shenandoah, because they can just keep FGCU guessing. You don't really know where these players are.
You don't know where they are, and unfortunately, they are finding you. Shenandoah taking up the kill feed, now a 1v3 for Tippin. Another 1v3 that, well, you're not going to have too much success in, and, well, we're seeing what we saw to FGCU in the hard point. Shenandoah, a clean 2 rounds in a row for them here on Berlin Search. And it does feel methodical. When we were talking about it, they seem to be very comfortable in knowing what they want to do when, what to do with the information they're given, and how to capitalize on it accordingly. And, Well, you got Toxic at 3-1. Everyone on the team with at least 1 kill. Shenandoah looking to at least get 3 in a row.
It's funny you say that right off the rip there. That was exactly what I was thinking, Katie, was that it feels like the slow and methodical play style is really working out well right now for Shenandoah. But talking about slow and methodical, this is a full-on beeline over towards the B site. Helpless is going to get this bomb down immediately, and it's a hard counter from Florida Gulf Coast. They thought this was an A hit. Nobody goes over to A, and now you have a chance to set up a perfect post-plant setup here for Shenandoah. This is going to be very, very tough for Florida Gulf Coast to break.
This is beautiful from them. The fast action out of the B bomb site. Florida Gulf Coast just reading the round incorrectly. And now, as you said, about to run into the guns of multiple players unless you check the right corner. And that's exactly what Tippin does. Able to get the first blood onto Steve-O. Kirsch follows it up. And what should be a beautiful setup getting picked apart by Florida Gulf Coast. Now a 4v2 as they look to get the defuse. Beezer able to get another alongside Justin.
Wow.
Tippin follows it up. And, well, the best laid plans aren't so effective if you can't win your gunfights.
Well, Katie, I think we're starting to see why Florida Gulf Coast just said, hey, you know what? You go ahead and you take that B bomb site. We feel completely comfortable in retaking the site. A beautiful 4v4 retake where they don't even lose a single player on the roster for Florida Gulf Coast. And it was just a perfect hit through the mailroom. They found that one player inside, hiding in one of the corners, lingering in and around the mailroom. Once you find that player, it makes it that much easier for you to be able to close out that round because it gives you the instant man advantage. Then you can take every other gunfight after that in a man advantage where it's always 2 gunfights, 2 guns looking at one. Makes your life a lot easier there on the retake. And that was a great, great round out of Florida Gulf Coast, something that clearly they've been practicing because that looked almost seamless for them to get that job done. And now it looks like they're trying to do the exact same play here. Kirchi instantly going to push up, get this bomb down over towards this B site. And again, Shenandoah not really putting a ton of focus on this side of the map. So another good post-plant setup should be able to get set up here for Florida Gulf Coast. Oh, but Steve-O finds the snipe.
And what a beautiful first blood that is. Steve-O, what can you do with the sniper? Well, you can remove Kirsch from the map. He'll have to wait for round number 5 to start. But now, Justin, this is crucial. How long can you stay alive here? Can you at least take 1 trade? Well, you're about to have the entirety of the team gets 1. Beasts are able to get another. Snipes coming through, and Helpless in the back line trying to even the odds. Now 2-2, but there's not a lot of time left for any sort of a defuse. And, well, you're going to have to hop the bomb because did he actually, I wonder, did he get on the bomb in time? I don't think he did too. He looks like he might have been just shy. And, well,
wait,
maybe not. The bomb defused. I thought he jumped on it at about 7.3 or something. I didn't think he had enough time, but he stuck it and he gets it.
I am kind of lost for words right now. I did not think they had enough time to get that bomb defuse in there, but yeah, he must have hopped it exactly before we jumped on board with them. And it must have just been in the perfect time to be able to hop onto that bomb and get that job done. And Florida Gulf Coast, they're going to be kicking themselves for that one. If you check that bomb even a second sooner, you get that final kill there. It was the perfect wrap to come back through middle of the map, to go back through the dockside to find that player. But unfortunately, just a little bit too slow. And I honestly thought Shenandoah's retake just took too long to come to fruition there. But I mean, they got the job done. They got the bomb defused, so you can't really complain about it at the end of the day. But you're seeing an adjustment now coming from FGCU. Beasts are watching over the B site, and you have Justin inside. So as soon as you find that kill, if you're Shenandoah at this point, you need to start thinking about the wrap out of the site because you do not have numbers over here right now.
Beaster, well, you got a first blood with that sniper. It's time to make the most of it. You know that Shenandoah, they're not going to have a comfortable push onto that B bomb site if that's where they want to head. And, well, trapped middle map, trying to figure out exactly what they want to do. And, well, some of the information now coming in. You know you have a 2v2. Justin able to strike first. Helpless gets the trade. Beaster just slowly waiting. I like this patience. Gets the bomb planted. Just going to wait with that nade. Tries to bank it off the wall. Not able to connect, but the pistol won't either. Helpless winning that gunfight, and that's where sometimes that snipe can be so painful. Maybe a different story if he has another gun in his hands aside from that pistol. Now Helpless on the bomb site, just trying to watch over, run down that clock in a 2v2, but maybe a pinch here out of Florida Gulf Coast if they can make it happen.
Yeah, but Kirchi's checking every single angle in the back right now, so they're just not going fast enough, it feels like, right now to find this final kill. Tippin has seen Helpless a few times here. Get some shots. We'll find the first, but the second player, he's all the way in the back. He's all the way behind, and that bomb will go off, and that's going to spell disastrous for Florida Gulf Coast. A 4-1 lead for Shenandoah here, and it was actually a frag that came in to close that out. I thought the bomb blew up. That is just not good. You
Well,
can't lose those
frags in and
situations.
around that bomb site, very scary.
It's a little weird. Yeah, it's a little
scary
weird.
place to be throwing grenades. But Shenandoah again coming out on top, and I mean, there's just such a difference here, right? If you don't stick that defuse, he was right on that 7.5. It is a world where it's 3-2 as opposed to 4-1. But Shenandoah, this is why they have such a strong record. But Beezer, can you capitalize? It seems like the teams that are getting the first bloods right now, maybe not necessarily guaranteeing them the round wins, but Justin opens it up with a first blood and you're able to get that bomb plant down. Does put you in a good position to try and bring this within 2 rounds if you can just wind down that clock, get the information, and well, the information turns into a nice snipe. Helpless goes down, now a 4v2.
Yeah, it's a situation where you can't lose this round now if you're Florida Gulf Coast. You need to win this round out, and they know that. But Toxic will find Beaster in the back with a sniper. That's the player overwatching everything right now. So that's going to make Tippin have to get off this right side of the map and come over to start getting into a spot to maybe watch this bomb. As you can see, the collapse from the Shenandoah players now coming in to try to defuse this bomb.
And some actual tough timing. Kirch kind of turns around right as the push comes in from Shenandoah. And now
Toxic.
a scramble.
Oh, no.
Toxic able to get one alongside Sid, both with the pistol kill. Sid follows it up with the double, but not enough time for a defuse. And, well, Florida Gulf Coast, a desperately needed round for them, a must-win round. But thing is getting a little scrappy. I mean, the kill's going Shenandoah's way at the end, but unfortunately just not enough time.
It kind of feels like if Florida Gulf Coast can get that bomb down and just play and kind of be in a nuisance on the map for a little bit, that's when Shenandoah is going to start to run into problems here in this game, because it just kind of feels like they're not quick enough on the draw when it comes to getting a couple of these kills and trying to get that retake. Even in the round before, when they did get the retake, it was with what, like a second left on the bomb to get the defuse, so wasn't nearly quick enough. And now the 4-man stack for FGCU that they've been doing over towards the A site might come to fruition here, because they have perfectly read the push coming in from Shenandoah.
This is great. Another first blood for Florida Gulf Coast. You always, if you strike first in that, capitalize on that man advantage. We'll see what Toxic decides to do in a long rotation around the top of the map. Will run right into Beaster Sniper if he's not careful, but, well, Toxic did see him as well, so Beaster just backing off, trying to be a little careful, but the intel will be shared. Helpless, though. Flies it, able to get one, can't get two. Justin there with the trade. Now, a 3-1. Toxic all on his own, and the bomb stranded at that A site and only 35 seconds left to work with, and only a sniper in your hands. This is going to get a little bit tricky. Florida Gulf Coast looking like they're trying to work their way back into this map.
Yeah, and Toxic's on 3 in a row, so I doubt we see him even go for this bomb defuse. Probably just trying to find a few kills to keep alive, maybe play forward some streaks, but he's going to make his move up towards the new site. And he'll find a second. He might actually be able to get this done. The pistol left in hands. Can't get the gunfight win inside with the pistol. Unfortunately, you're probably going to lose that one 9 out of 10 times. Pistol versus MP40 in an up-close gunfight. And Tippin, with all the information, knew where that final player was. Gets the job done just at the end there. But I did not think he was going to go for the defuse there, Katie. But when you find 2 snipes and make it a 1v1, you kind of got to go for it.
And that was tough at the very ending. If he doesn't start sprinting forward, it looks like maybe he just didn't necessarily register that that final player was right in front of him. If he immediately vaults over that wall and just starts shooting, who knows what happens with that gunfight, but it's that final sprint that trips him up. Beaster now has been great with these snipes, just waiting to see if he can connect with one more. Toxic just out of range around the corner, but Kirsch will get that bomb plant down at A, and no first blood just yet as Shenandoah prepares for the full retake onto this A site. And, well, they're going to need to, because what was a 4-1 lead, very real world, that it could become a 4-4 tie game. But Steve-O, another first blood for him. Kirsch, an immediate trade now. But we'll have to deal with the fact that you have at least 2 members of Shenandoah pushing up onto you into middle building.
Yeah, the A site can be really, really hard to retake when you get a full push and a full lockdown like what you're seeing from FGCU right now. But the big thing that Shenandoah did, which I love so much, is they've now hit in from all different angles, and you can try to pinch on these FGCU players inside the site.
Steve-O, another nice pick for him. Tippin, though, a trade. Justin follows it up, and, well, Tippin with 2. Despite Steve-O's attempts to get some picks and push them off, it was really the final fights in and around that bomb site that sealed the deal. And Tippin, a nice 2 for him, and just like that, what was a 4-1? Wow. You can't let a 4-1 become 4-4. That's unacceptable.
No, you just can't. You really can't. Like we were saying when it was that 4-1 and it was a must-win round for Florida Gulf Coast, it's now starting to feel like this is a kind of must-win round here for Shenandoah. Need to get some of the confidence, some of the momentum back inside your favor here. But oh my God, look at the hard counter coming in from Florida Gulf Coast right now. They're going to send 3 players through middle of the map over towards this B site, and that is exactly where this bomb is going towards. But Helpless may have caught a blessed timing, will get the trade inside of the site, and can get this bomb down now.
And Florida Gulf Coast, they should anticipate the bomb site plant coming in here. Just waiting now to figure out exactly where the remainder of Shenandoah is. You're going to have 2 players around the B bomb site, and Toxic just lurking in the back, and, well, lurking for good measure. Takes out Kirsch now. A 2v3. Shenandoah, you said it. This is really a must-win map for them to get that momentum, to remind them that at one point they were 4-1. Some shots connecting for Sid, but not able to convert that into a kill. 20 seconds left on this defuse, and Tippin tried to play his life as best as he can. Just can't connect with the bullets. Beaster there with the trade, but with only 14 seconds left, is there anything you can do in a 1v2? The answer is no. Shenandoah, they gave up 3, but finally back on the board, and now match point.
And unfortunately, just not enough time there for Beaster to be able to play himself there, play his life, get a little bit more time left in the tank to be able to go forward. He just had no time to even regen his health there after that first gunfight win, and so he just basically had to fly at them if he wanted any chance of winning that round, and unfortunately just played perfectly by Shenandoah there, now putting themselves 1 round away from tying the series up at 1-1 here. Florida Gulf Coast, their last 2 offenses have looked much better. They've been very decisive offenses. They've basically chosen where they want to go. They get the bomb down, and they instantly make it work for themselves here. But player number 7, I thought he got spotted by Steve-O through middle of the map there, but must not have. And now he has a wide open B bomb site and should be able to get this bomb down.
Yeah, and that's actually a great play for them to not realize there's pressure onto B. You can see kind of those arrows starting to turn around from Shenandoah, realizing that there was information that was missed, and Justin just getting himself bunkered up, set up inside that B bomb site, and Tippin, this could be a huge first blood, but doesn't keep watch on the push, and he's able to scramble away. That would be a huge moment for Florida. An opportunity missed, and now Tippin knows that there's still at least one other player here that he's going to have to deal with, just trying to wait to see. They push up to the top of the building, but now Toxic on that bomb site trying to take the 1v1 with Justin, but the remainder of Shenandoah gonna collapse at the same time. Beaster gets 1 with a snipe. Toxic trades it out. Beaster with a double on the snipe, but Toxic answers with a double of his own, going for the defuse, but not able to get it as well. The doors are wide open. We're going to a round 11.
Ooh, Katie, we get a round 11. I'm loving me this map right now. Good little map between these 2 teams. Both teams really kind of putting their all in to this one, and I really liked that post plan setup from FGCU there in that round. You had that 1 player set up all the way in that back window of warehouse, found one of the players, and what that did was it forced Shenandoah to put even more resources in trying to get that player out of that spot. As soon as they do, it gave the final player on FGCU just enough time to get all the way around and be able to find that final kill, and it actually gives them the number advantage here as well. Or sorry, unfortunately, they have the number disadvantage here going into this round, so they will be back on defense, and they will have to try to be able to close this one out. Shenandoah now, they find the first blood, but Helpless sneaks in from behind, will find 2, get the numbers in their favor. They should have an open bomb site now to get this bomb down.
And we said how important it is to capitalize on those first bloods, and, well, Florida not able to do that, giving up a huge double kill and the plant in the process. Shenandoah now in the driver's seat. You have that A plant. 2 pushed up on the bomb site, looking at the angles from mid-map, and through that staircase push around the corner, which is exactly where Tippin is potentially considering going. Just checking those corners, spots out Sid. They see each other, able to get a couple shots, can't connect, stunned, but no push on the side of Shenandoah to capitalize on that tack. And Tippin now going to push forward, but Sid ready and waiting, finally gets the kill, and now it's just Beaster left, and nothing he can do there. A first blood that looked like it might be them stealing that S&D ends up in Shenandoah's favor. A little bit rocky for them through the middle of that map, but, well, they come out on top in that round 11.
I actually really like that round 11 push from Shenandoah as well to go over towards that A site. It wasn't a site that they were hitting too often throughout that game. It really felt like their favored and more preferred site was that B site, but we've seen a few times through that game, even when you got that bomb down at B, FGCU was able to get the retake, able to take that site back and get them away with a bomb defuse. So they decide, hey, you know what, round 11, let's throw something a little different than what we've seen from FGCU throughout this game. Let's go put this bomb down over at the A site. Unfortunately, they get blooded, but a beautiful play from Helpless through middle of the map to find 2, then get away with his life, get the bomb down as well. I mean, a big individual effort there in round 11, and then as soon as they got that set up, with the bomb down, with the number advantage, it's just so hard to break at that point. It would have had to have been pretty much a throw from Shenandoah to lose that round, and Florida Gulf Coast were able to come away with the #1 win.
Yeah, helpless. The hyper aggressive play in the round 11, risking it, and well, it paid off for him. And now let's take a look at this. Multiple players here, helpless and toxic, both in the double digits, 10-9 and 12-6. But I think what's interesting here is you get to this round 11, right? You have Stevo at double neg at 5-10, but you look at Florida Gulf Coast, all of them such similar stat lines, but it was really helpless and toxic popping off that pushed them over the edge.
And I think it's the same thing that we said in the hardpoint, right? Like when you look at this FGCU roster, every time we've seen them play, it is just a very well-rounded team effort from this team. They remind me a lot of kind of the Toronto Ultra in a way, because just of how well they play off of each other, and as a team, you don't really have one player necessarily popping off at all times. It's just a good, well-rounded team effort here in the game, and unfortunately, they just don't come away with the round win there. You got to think if they hold on to that man advantage and somebody's watching that mid steps going up and they find that second kill on a helpless, they're in a 4v2, they close that game out. They just unfortunately caught a bad timing inside of that round 11. They get double shot in the back and they get away with their life. That goes the other way. This is probably a map 2 win for FGCU and a 2-0 lead, and that's just the timing you get sometimes in Search and Destroy.
Yeah, maybe not as clean as you like, but a win is still a win. Shenandoah on the board. We'll guarantee ourselves at least a map number 4. When we get back, though, after this break, guys, it's time for the control and see Shenandoah, can they take the lead for the first time? Things are all tied up between Shenandoah and Florida Gulf Coast as we head into our Tuscan control cruise. And you look at the lay of the land. Is everything going about as expected?
I think so. I mean, let me double check. I don't have my notepad with me, but I think FGCU taking hardpoint, check. Shenandoah taking the Search and Destroy, check. And now the question mark comes in of control. What's going to happen here inside of this map number 3? And we head to Tuscan for our last 3 maps, so we're guaranteed to see at least 2 Tuscans here. But this very much so could end up being the map to decide the series, because let's be honest here, FGCU looked like they controlled a lot of that hard point. It looked much better into their favor, and that Search and Destroy should not have gotten to round 11. Shenandoah definitely should have closed that out a little sooner.
Yeah, I mean, I said during our break I didn't want to harp on it too much, but when
I'll
you
harp
are
on it all day.
4-1 in Search and Destroy and it goes to a round 11, you have almost fumbled the bag. And they were able to come out on top, helpless with a huge 2-piece, really won them the round, in which Florida Gulf Coast, like, they got that first blood. They were very much in a position to close out that round 11, but I think helpless with that double, able to help them turn the tides. But I'm a little nervous because I wanted to see the S&D be cleaner than that. But hey, I mean, we talk about the ice, we talk about being able to get it done when you're in a tough position, and that's exactly what they did. And we've seen controls they also have success in, so maybe some workable room here for them, because if it gets to a hard point, right, it's kind of, I feel like if you're Florida Gulf Coast, you want to close this out in 4. If you are Shenandoah right now, you want to push this to that map 5.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're Shenandoah, you're looking at this map 3 right now like, hey, this needs to be a win for us, because that hard point, it's not our strongest mode, especially inside of stage 2 at the moment. We haven't put in the best performances against these other tier 1 schools. So right now, if you're Shenandoah, this is a must-win map. You need to go into this. You need to take this map away from Florida Gulf Coast. Take one of the respawns off of them. And we've seen them find the same amount of success against other rosters, where they go in, they lose the 2 hard points, but they come away with the 2, 3, and they 5, and they're able to take the series. So if they can find a way to find that same success here, that's how it's probably their recipe to success to win this series for themselves. But it's going to be a hard time. I don't think that FGCU is going to go down quietly, especially in a respawn on control on Tuscan, because from what we've seen in that map number 1 and even in that map number 2, the slaying power on FGCU is very strong, and they're going to be a very even slaying unit. So because kills are still what decides that final round, if you are Shenandoah here, you need to make sure your defenses are very strong and very decisive, and that you're not losing a ton of lives in your defensive wins.
Yeah, and it really, FGCU, it just seems like comfortable just being aggressive, getting in Shenandoah's face, pushing those points. And We'll see. It's going to be Shenandoah on offense. I mean, anytime you're starting on an offense in a control, if you can get that early round win, that can be really crucial to your success. But, well, everyone's knifing everyone, so I have a feeling that something is up. So we're probably going to get a reset on this map. But, hey, if everyone wants to duke it out with knives, I'm not particularly upset by that.
I really don't. I think that was definitely planned. That looked like that was very much so. I think we are in game right now, Katie. As Kerchi pulls out the MP40.
Knifed what?
It must have been a square up thing.
Started already? What's going on?
I really don't know, but it must have been a square up thing, Katie. Both Florida Gulf Coast must have challenged Shenandoah to a fight in the middle of the map, and there were knives right off the rip here. But I think we're just going with it at the moment.
To be honest, if that becomes the new meta to start controls, I don't hate it.
I honestly bring a little more excitement to control. I'm kind of down for it too, Katie. But we get a tick of progress onto the A site here for Shenandoah, and with the fact that this is still going on between these two teams, I'm going to say that was 100% legit.
All right, well, a little funky, a little weird, but you know what? I like it. And Shenandoah, unfortunately, now you are down by 5 lives, but you do get that second tick of progress here at A, looking to close it out. We'll see if Florida just gives this up or tries to linger around the mid-map or bolsters for that B push. And I actually like this position out of Justin, just going to try and sneak around the corner, get some kills, able to get one. The collapse comes in, and, well, A point is secured, but now if you're Shenandoah, you're in a tough spot because this could become TDM very quickly with only 11 lives remaining.
I love that play from Florida Golf as well. What they do there is they basically wait. They're like, hey, you know what? Let's just give this up, but let's set up in positions around the site so that as soon as Shenandoah tries to leave, we get all the exit kills. It gives them a big man advantage that you're seeing now. But Shenandoah, they're starting to bring it back to their favor. They're able to hop onto the B site now, already halfway through to their first tick of progression. They actually have Florida Gulf Coast kind of spawning out here in a spot where you want them, as you do have player 1 in the back, so everybody on FGCU will spawn up in the top of church, and this could be a hard spot to be able to come through and retake here now.
Look, I'm here to watch Shenandoah win this first round. Oh, Helpless just got his first kill. I was going to say, I want to see him win this round at 0-7. But finally, on the board here, and they're able to get those 2 ticks in, and Helpless now doing everything he can, trying to get those pre-fires out. Doesn't quite connect, but 2 ticks in with 1:20 of time, and just like that, you were down by 7 or 8 lives, and now it's all evened up at 7 apiece. You're back onto the point. Toxic watching on church. You're going to have Helpless looking over at the push from spawn, and, well, it doesn't even matter. They can't get there in time. Knives out at the beginning. 0-7 going into the second point for Helpless, and, well, Shenandoah doesn't care. They came out on top.
All I'm saying is every round now, Katie, better start with knives off the start of the round, and everybody just running at each other. Yeah, exactly. I want to see it again here. Give the people what they want. No, Helpless, that's a pistol. That is not a knife, sir. This is I'm not about this strategy. I think that it's knives only off the start of the rounds from now on, but it looks like we're going to get more of a normal round of control off the start here. And speaking of the abnormalities of that last round, an offensive win there for Shenandoah as well. So exactly the start they want inside of control here.
Yeah, and you got to be happy just trying to work their way for that first tick, but Sid and Stevo fly in, and look at them depleting all of that time and effort from Florida Gulf Coast, puts them right back to the start. Now they're down 4 lives in the process. Losing that many lives early with nothing to show for it, it can be really a brutal start for anyone on a control. And, well, Justin walks right past Toxic, stops, goes, hey, I think I saw someone, turns around, able to get the kill now. Stevo watching over this A point, but Tippin shoots him in the back, and now they can finally start working on that progress as they've also managed to even up the lives.
Absolutely have. 1 tick of progress does come through, like you were alluding to there, and Tippin's in a great spot just to kind of mow these players down as they come over towards the monument side of the map. They have a great setup here. 1 player going to try to touch in, and you got to get that kill, Tippin. Yeah, absolutely got to get that one, but it's going to allow the rest of Shenandoah to now come off spawn and start to reinforce this hill one more time and stop the Florida Gulf Coast progression. And oh, man, you got to think if he gets that kill, that's probably the zone finished off there with the setup that they had. But nope, unfortunately, does not come through. And now you got to invest more reinforcements, invest more lives into trying to get the zone. And you might not even be able to get it with the positioning you have with Shenandoah on the map at the moment.
And you don't even really have the time either. You have 25 seconds left. You're down by 3 lives. And, well, Sid taking up a little more effective of a prone spot, but unfortunately, Stevo, here we go. It's time, but the nades come in, and that's a full wipe onto Florida Gulf Coast. And, well, Sid alongside them, but now 15 seconds left for Florida. They don't really have time. They're not even attempting to stall the clock by going to B. And, well, With only 10 lives left and 9.8 seconds on the clock. There they go. They finally get onto the point. Shenandoah gonna give them that time. Back off. They do not want to end up pushing into that point, getting the kills on the side of Florida Gulf Coast and giving them the point. So good job to back off. But now, if you're Shenandoah, all you have to do is kind of sit back and pick them apart and stagger the push.
Exactly. You only got 1 minute if you're Florida Gulf Coast to try to break into this, but even more importantly, only 7 lives to try to break onto the zone. It needs to be clean. It needs to be effective if you want to find the break here, and you're not going to check your deep corner. Sid's sitting right there ready to shut you down again, and now just like that, down to 5 lives here for Florida Gulf Coast, and realistically, Katie, you got 1 solid shot at trying to break this hill and get on and get in a 4 stack, but you're going to need to go through 3 wipes of Shenandoah players if you want to win this round.
Yeah, I mean, unless you can get a full stack onto that point and make a miracle happen. And, well, that's a good start to be able to take out Stevo and Helpless. But Sid, there you go. No respawns remaining. Tippin trying to follow him up. And first step, get onto the point. Sort of secured. But unfortunately, next step is don't die because you have no respawns left. And, well, now it's just Tippin and Justin all in their lonesome with 5 seconds left for them to make something happen. And the entirety of Shenandoah surrounding that second B point. And well, this is going to be Shenandoah on the board here, and a little bit of funkiness going on here in this control, but I'm liking it. But that's Shenandoah. That's 2 in a row for them, and we said the controls and the searches, they are looking good.
Yeah, I mean, just I was going to save this kind of for the end of our match here. If Shenandoah was able to come out and close this one out, but if this team can start winning hard points with how they look in Search and Destroy off the early rounds of our S&D. And how they've looked in the early rounds here of this control. I mean, this team is going to be a scary team come the end of the year. They could very well be opening up a lot of eyes. We were talking about it before coming into this one. This team just on the cusp of the top 25. And if they come out here and they're able to take a map off of Florida Gulf Coast, I mean, this could be what boils them over, what puts them over the top of being inside of that top 25 and already on offense. 1 tick of progression already through in that A site. And look at that flank coming in from behind there. Helpless finds another kill in the back. And I honestly, if you're Florida Gulf Coast here, I don't even think you can invest any more lives over towards A.
No, and unfortunately, Helpless, if he was able to get at least 1 kill in his position, that actually would have been huge for them. Any kill at this point going to be helpful to just create a larger gap. But in the end, it doesn't really matter, at least in terms of the A point, because you're able to get a cap. You have over 2 minutes of time. But Sid now in the back trying to make something happen, shake off that stun, does the pre-fire, and get some initial shots. And who's going to win the gunfight, though? It's Sid with 2. Tippin with the trade, though, to stop the bleeding. And now a big fight happening around that B site. Helpless trying to chase down Kirsch, but Justin flying in, also there to get the trades. But Shenandoah, really the kill feed just feels like it's all Shenandoah as that first tick of B comes in, and they are cruising toward tick number 2.
So one thing I'm seeing from Shenandoah that I haven't seen from really anybody else do here inside of the CCL is what they've done with player number 1, with Stevo, is when they're about to cap A, Stevo makes the long flank through the roof side of the map, doesn't even touch the A zone, and then runs all the way to the back tank to force the spawn out of Florida Gulf Coast before Florida even knows that that A zone has been captured. Now on to B, they're starting to, bring this one back a little bit for themselves here, but the life difference is just way too much at the moment. 21-9, now make it 21-8, and at this point for Florida Gulf Coast, if you want to win this map or even win this round, it needs to be flawless Call of Duty from this point on.
Yeah, I mean, Stevo there, he did a great play through their spawn, was able to get a number of kills and defend the players that were on the point, and it ended up being a 1v1 that he almost wins. If he wins that, they win. At the very end, they only needed a sliver of time left on that 3rd tick, but now some stabilizing. Tippin on 4 right now, maybe chance to make something happen there, denying Toxic causing any problems in their spawn, just pushing Shenandoah back, wasting time, but lives are not on their side, so everything you can do to whittle them down into single digits, but every time someone dies, you only have 5 left, just like that. Helpless and Stevo pushing their way through Church, but Tippin trying to be the hero, now on 6, trying to do everything he can to just waste time on the clock because you only have 1 respawn remaining, and this is for your control life. You can't get 3-0'd here. It means you're gonna have to try and get it done in a search later on, and you know that that's gonna be Shenandoah's playing ground, but we'll see if Tippin can be a hero again.
Well, no respawns remaining now for Florida Gulf Coast, so it literally needs to be perfect from this point on. A 4v11 to close this game out. They will find 2. it's not looking like it's enough right now. They actually find a third as well, so this might be enough to stabilize through one push here. But Tippin actually invests a glide bomb here in this round. I mean, I guess you might as well go out with a bang. Will find one more. His teammate finds another. They can still do this, Katie. 30 seconds left. It's a 2v6. If you're Shenandoah right now, just group up and take the fight as a full 4-man unit.
This was, what, about a 7 to 15 life lead? And if you're Justin, if he can get that initial kill, but Tippin doing everything he can, and finally Justin and Tippin fall. The heroics, you call in the glide bomb, you're able to give their positioning, but the numbers game wins out in the end. But I mean, they played that, I think, as best they could, given the circumstances, given the lives remaining to them. But wow, we thought the 4-1 was looking good for Shenandoah before it went to a round 11 in the S&D. That is not the case this time. They looked clean through the entirety of that control.
And now one thing I want to bring up, Katie, is Florida Gulf Coast, and this was something we were talking about when we came into this, was when we looked back at that match against Barry, when they got 3-0'd by Barry, it looked like they went through maps 1 and 2, they kind of got steamrolled. And then you look at map 3, and it was way, way worse in that map number 3. They basically got rolled through map 3, and it kind of felt like they just gave up at that point. So I'm very interested to see how this roster now bounces back from back-to-back game losses. Is that new coach going to be able to help you rebound? Who's the player right now trying to get everybody on the same page, trying to get everybody to regain going into this map 4? Because you're going into your strongest mode combination in terms of hard points. So if you can go into this one and be able to bring the fight back to them, you absolutely can force that game 5. But right now for this team, I think it's all about composure for them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, composure is key. If you believe that you are playing in a lost game, it is going to affect what happens on the map. But take a look at it, Shenandoah. I mean, just both in the damage done, the kills, they ran this map. And well, I'm not gonna look too much into it maybe here cruising, but Florida Gulf Coast, we're only seeing 3 players on that stat sheet.
That's a rage quit. That's a rage quit right there, Katie.
That lends itself to being able to regain.
That's a rage quit from Captain Kirchi himself. So not the best look, unfortunately, right now to not have his name on the scoreboard. But you know what? It happens. It definitely happens. And they'll need to hit that hot regain, like we said, for that map number 4. But one thing I'm seeing from Shenandoah in this map, though, is the fact that you basically got the full even outcome from their roster that we've seen from FGCU in that map number 1. And guys, take a look at the scoreboard. What could have been in that round 11 a 2-0 lead for FGCU. It was looking oh so good. They get that first blood. Things were looking great. And unfortunately, a timing doesn't go their way. They drop 2 players and now find themselves down 2-1 here in the series. We go to Tuscan Hardpoint next. That first hardpoint was all FGCU, no question about that. And I think that going to a map like Tuscan will actually kind of favor them a little bit more, Katie, than what we saw in that Bocage, because constantly in Bocage, we saw FGCU being the team that was the first team to the hill, the first team set up, and every time we had a kind of team fight, they seemed to be the team that came out on top. Well, doing that on a map like Tuscan will give you even more time on the hill than what you were able to find on Bocage, where you're able to respawn close and reinforce into the hill as quickly as you can. So if FGCU can play the same way that they played in that last map inside of the Bocage hardpoint here on Tuscan, I think that's when you're going to see this team find a lot of success. And honestly, if they play the same way, maybe even 100-point club Shenandoah.
And I mean, we say this, so we'd be remiss to mention, I mean, with their loss in map 1, Shenandoah is still 18-8 right now in their hard points. So they've
definitely
won
not bad.
Far more than they've lost. But as you said, it's about 13-2 for Florida. So I mean, there's a very real world where Shenandoah can close this out in Tuscan. It's less a chaotic of a map, so really anything can happen. But I think Shenandoah, if you can capitalize on that rage quit, if you can capitalize on the frustration coming out of the side of Florida Gulf Coast, you can absolutely punish them. Just stack onto that frustration, make them tilt-a-whirl their way out of Tuscan, and Florida's not going to have a very good time, even if Hardpoint is where they've been seeing that success. And the tough thing, too, is Florida, it might be in the back of their mind right now, Cruisin', that you can win this Hardpoint, this is where you're comfortable, but then you have to go up against them in another Search and Destroy.
Yeah, but see, to that one, I think that might be a little bit of an edge for Florida Gulf Coast, though, as well, going to that S&D. Because, like, you know what? Yeah, that is the favored mode for Shenandoah, and yes, they won that map, too. But I think that Florida Gulf Coast was in no way anywhere near that map number 2 until they started making their mid-game adjustments. And that could kind of sit in the back of the minds of other Shenandoah players as well. Like, hey, if Helpless didn't get that 2-piece through middle of the map, we probably win that map too. So Florida Gulf Coast, they definitely need to take positives away from that map if we do end up seeing that map number 5, but the job needs to go through that Tuscan hardpoint first. I really like a point that you bring up as well, is the fact that Shenandoah is going towards Tuscan hardpoint. It's not a map that's as crazy, so maybe we haven't seen them on a map like this yet, right? So maybe that might be just what this team needs for them to be able to bounce back, for them to be able to bring themselves back into this series, to be able to kind of take the series as well, to be able to look better at hardpoint. It might just come down to needing to play a Tuscan hardpoint. We just really don't know. We haven't seen that much from the Shenandoah roster, but what we have seen is we've seen Florida Gulf Coast look very strong in hardpoint. So it's a lot of question marks up in the air, but I just kind of wonder, are we going to see that same Florida Gulf Coast that came out very confident in map number 1, or are we going to see the Florida Gulf Coast that just got 3-0'd in control?
Well, good news apparently. We have the coach. Zarin is in chat and just clarified that there was no rage quit. PC crashed, maybe some issues going on there. So, I mean, that's good news for Florida Gulf Coast, right? News. If this was less of a rage quit and more of something else going on, then you can check that box. Maybe the mental's still okay. They're going to go into this with that confidence. They ran the first hard point. They can certainly do it again in the Tuscan. We'll just have to see if they can get it across the line. But still, Shenandoah, they are going to have so much confidence. I mean, a 3-0 in control and looking as strong as they did throughout that process. And I mean, even starting, you have to ask, like, you're coming off a 3-0 with everyone goofing around with knives at the very beginning of round number 1. They have to feel like they can close it out here.
And they lost that knife fight, too. They didn't even win the knife fight, so Florida Gulf Coast had every advantage. They had every advantage in that round number 1. They got the initial wipe of kills. They got the setup that they wanted. They weren't really letting Shenandoah do anything. But the big play that Shenandoah did in both of their offenses is when they were close to getting that A site finished, the one player would wrap through the bottom side of the map, get set up in the back tank, and it instantly just forced Florida Gulf Coast to spawn top church and put them in a bad spot to try to break inside the hill. And honestly, I've never seen a team inside of CCL really do that to that kind of success inside of these, like inside of the top 25. So to see Shenandoah come out and do that, I honestly would not want to play Shenandoah again on a Tuscan control. I mean, that might have to be an auto veto against this team pretty soon because they look way too comfortable on that map.
But then you look at Florida Gulf Coast, right? I mean, that is certainly a VOD that you need to be going over. You need to be sitting down, taking a look at what went wrong for you so consistently in Tuscan, because yes, you're going to focus on the maps that you're very good at with the time allotted to you, because of course you want to know that you have must-win map modes, but there's clearly going to be very glaring issues that happen in the map that are going to be worth you taking the time to go over it, especially if maybe you're struggling in control in general. It's going to be a game mode, especially when it's pivotal, right? If you're struggling with the S&Ds, you don't want to be having a tough time in 2 out of the 3 modes. But as we said too, Shenandoah, it was not a clean S&D win for them. It could have been. They were 4-1. They were in the driver's seat to be able to close that out, maybe 6-1 or even 6-2. But, well, it goes to that round 11, and as you said, just one double kill saving the day after Florida took that first blood. I mean, it's a very real world where, hey, it's 2-1 in the opposite direction, and Shenandoah is fighting for their life. But Tuscan, this is where we found ourselves last map, and this is where we will find ourselves for the remainder of the series going into this hard point. A must-win for Florida. I don't know if we'll see knives coming out again, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I'd be very surprised if the opening break-off of this game saw a 4v4 knife fight through the middle of the map, but I also never thought I'd see that for a control, though. So you know what? Everything is really up in the air right now, Katie, going into this map number 4. Also kind of interested to see who starts off on which side and how they play off of that, because we saw in that Bacage hardpoint, Shenandoah started off with those unfavored spawns and instantly tried to kind of push through the map and try to flip those spawns out for themselves for that P2. This time they will have the closer spawns towards P1, so it's going to be a full hit towards P1 just to try to hold on to these spawns off the rip.
Now Shenandoah on the point. No surprise considering their starts, trying to soak up as much time as they can. Helpless and Stevo combined for the first and second blood. Stevo, though, finally found out by Florida Gulf Coast, but Helpless, well, at least punished with a trade of his own. And this is a great start for them. Already 25 seconds of hill time. Helpless waiting for the push here. Will find Tippin in a moment. We'll see if he can get the kill over the heady, but doesn't even need to. Stevo there to help with the crossfire. But Justin now finally breaking into the hill, trying to get the contest. But Sid wins 1. Can he win 2? No. Finally, Florida Gulf Coast able to start racking up some time, but it's only about 10 seconds of a hill time left. So you also got to pay attention. Toxic really trying to make the long rotation, and Tippin has no idea he's there.
Yeah, he snuck past Beeser. Beeser did not see him. They basically crossed paths towards the top side of the patio there. And Toxic's actually gonna just kind of rain down fire in the back here, and it's perfect because it gives you a chance now for Shenandoah to make that rotation from P1 to P2 and now get into a spot where you can really spawn these FGCU players towards that top side of the map. And we saw how well they held this in control, so I wouldn't be totally opposed to seeing them hold the same point here inside of the hard point the exact same way.
Shenandoah looks extremely comfortable on Tuscan so far. We had a question mark about the respawn modes, but I mean, the control, they dominated. It's now 53-11 here for Shenandoah on Tuscan in a hard point, and who knows, maybe they just don't really like Bokaj, but well, this is a great start now as they're looking to accumulate the remainder of that scrap time. There will be a push from Kirsch, able to shoot Toxic in the side and lock that in, but look at those spawns. Sid spawning right behind Beeser now, and well, just gonna ignore the point entirely, rotate his way up and over through the top side of the map, but it is gonna be a little bit of a contest here that Shenandoah is gonna come out on top. Stevo with a nice two-piece to lock them into this third hill, and this has really been Shenandoah. Hills 1 through 3, it's all Shenandoah.
So Florida Gulf Coast, they give up the scrap time there to try to get the full setup over towards the new hill, but Stevo in the back finds that two-piece like you called out, and that really kind of just slowed down that Florida Gulf Coast push. Toxic also finds 3. So you're just not able to get into a comfortable spot here for FGCU. Finally, Kirchi will get onto the hill on 5 in a row, does end up falling as well. So you're just not in a comfortable spot at all for FGCU. Finally, it feels like you've kind of cleared it out. But as soon as I say that, the rest of Shenandoah comes off spawn and everybody still continues to fly at this hill with only 20 seconds left.
Yeah, and I mean, you would be hoping for more time for Florida, but they're being punished by the nades right now from Shenandoah. Are excellent, taking out at least 2 on the hill. And then you have Stevo flying in to get a 2-piece and says, no, the scrap time is ours. Thank you very much. You can try your luck at P4. And, well, you're going to have to get through Shenandoah because they're in the scrap time. They're in new. You have Sid anchoring the spawns. Florida, what is going on?
Yeah, Florida, they need to adjust, and they need to adjust quickly to the fact that Sid is going to be on these rotations 95% of the time, locking things down in the back, and that's a full 4-man wipe. And look at where Florida Gulf Coast spawn. Everybody spawns up in columns. Everybody has to punish and push their way through small choke points, and this is exactly where you want them spawning if you're Shenandoah, because you can read these spawns very easily. Now you'll get a split spawn coming in through the middle of the map. It's not going to be as easy to read, but you still hold on to those close spawns. You can still reinforce the hill very quickly if you end up falling. And, I mean, this is just looking like a great hold from Shenandoah. Finally, they'll all 4 go down. But, again, you still spawn up close. You can still reinforce once again.
And really, it's Beeser doing everything he can to try and drag his team onto these hills. Now on a 4th spree, almost double positive at 13 and 7. He said, Tippin, look, you only have 1 kill, but I'm dragging you with me. Get in the backpack. We're not done with this series yet. But, well, Shenandoah, no surprise. They are on the scrap time, and they're fighting it out over new. Helpless. We'll have to find one more in Tippin. Can't get it done. His 2-piece will allow Florida to strike first on this hill finally. They can get a full hold here. They're going to have to try and work their way back into this game. They can't hope to tie it up, but they can at least make a chance at a map 5 a reality.
Yeah, and Tippin, the flex player, he needs to find a way to get out of the blender here. Find a way to get a couple of kills, get some confidence back into the gunny. And now 3 in a row, you got to start to think it's starting to feel it a little bit more here. Things are starting to look a little bit more up. Kirch is getting very aggressive through the middle of connector with that SMG in hand. And unfortunately, Tippin, that's just a gunfight. You should not lose, like, ever inside of that situation. You're holding the angle. Unfortunately, you end up falling. But this has been the best hold we've seen from Florida Gulf Coast throughout this game so far. I mean, this is going to end up turning into a full 60 if Justin can win this final gunfight here. And he unfortunately doesn't, but that's only 8 seconds out of the full 60 going to the way of Shenandoah. So, I mean, a good answer back at the end of the round there from FGCU. But the big issue, Katie, is we go back to P1 and look at where the rest of Shenandoah are. Full setup. Everything is looking bright right now for Shenandoah.
Shenandoah, they might have even broken that hill with a couple more seconds of time if a team kill hadn't come in on their side. And, well, they're not able to kill anyone at this point, themselves or Florida Gulf Coast, because that kill feed is all green. That kill feed is all Florida. And they finally look like they might be coming alive, finding their footing as they cross the 100-point mark and are looking to chunk down on what was a 50-point lead. Now 30 seconds left on this hill, and Shenandoah just trying to find a foothold, at least contesting the time, but they can't seem to find a single kill.
It's a big comeback for Florida Gulf Coast. I think this is something that you see a lot happen too on this map, is that if you can get a good setup on P1 in the second or in the third set of rotations, it really can turn into a money hill You're seeing it here, and you know what else I'm seeing here is I'm seeing a big adjustment coming in from FGCU. They know that the Shenandoah likes to play for these back spawns, likes to make plays to try to get in towards the back and influence spawns heavily, and that's why you're seeing so much focus right now from the FGCU players in terms of trying to spawn up and hold that back tank spawn.
There's going to be at least one player helpless, just trying to make something happen, give his players time to get to him. But look at this kill feed. They cannot get through the line right now. Kirsch on 6, Tippin on 5. Need I remind you, he was 1 and 12. Now 9 and 14. On a 5 spree, Kirsch finally cut down. Beeser on a 3 spree. And, well, Florida, maybe they just needed to light a fire and see that they were down by over 50 to get the confidence they needed to start making something happen. I don't know. Some players play best when they're under pressure, but look at that. It's 151 to 149, and Florida's about to take the lead.
I mean, talking about the Tippin kind of regain here for himself, like you said, on 5 in a row, still looking for these streaks. I think a big part of this is the fact that they're holding on to spawns earlier on inside a lot of these hills right now, Katie, because it's a lot easier as a flex player or as an AR player to sit on the back, sit on a head glitch, and be able to push hills like that, as opposed to having to constantly be the team pushing into the hill, right? So you can see it's definitely having a positive impact on his game. He's out of the blunder now, 10 and 15. Definitely starting to bring it back. The big thing, though, is they have not realized that Sid is in the back here, and you need to find a way to get this player out of it. This is exactly what happened the last time through. Shenandoah fought this from the front and really didn't allow Florida Gulf Coast to get any time on this hill, and it's looking very similar once again.
Well, in Shenandoah, they're going to need this because they had almost a complete collapse over the last couple hills. And, well, helpless, can you go big? You know, there's at least 2 members of Florida here. If anything, can you stay alive? No, all angles being covered as Florida flies in and capitalizes on this hill. Try and pour salt in this wound, steal away a hard point that was looking so very promising for Shenandoah, and Sid traded out by another team nade. That's the second one we have seen from them in this map alone, and it's those minor mistakes that are costing them their lead and are costing them their regain as they look to give up the remainder of that time and try and work their way into this next hill and get a stable foothold. And, well, finally the kill feed leaning back their way, some pre-fire there out of Helpless, who's trying to catch someone out in that early push. And finally, you can get this next player, get some hill time for yourselves and get something going, but Shenandoah looking shaky here through the middle of this series.
Yeah, it's a lot scrappier of a P3 hill this time here for Shenandoah, or sorry, for a P4 here for Shenandoah than what we've seen in the last set of rotations, but they're still getting the job done at the end of the day. You're still inside the hill, you're still starting to build that lead back up for yourself. It's exactly what you need. And now you've also stabilized the spawns in the back here. So you are in a little bit better of a situation here. But already Florida Gulf Coast from the front of the line, they're just going to break their way right back in. And now they've got you kind of spawning up in the back, and they know it. A big one-on-one now. This will be for the pretty much the remainder of the scrap time here. And it goes the way of Sid. It actually looks like they're going to invest one more life here for Florida Gulf Coast. But Sid comes out on top once again. Now it's all about the rotations over to P5.
And Florida Gulf Coast, they saw some initial success here on this hill, and Shenandoah, this is where that first team kill came through, so we'll see if they can try and change history. That's what they're looking to do right now, and this is that moment you have to ask, is this reminiscent of that 4-1 lead they had S&D, but in hardpoint? Are they just taking the foot off the gas and getting too comfortable with the lead that they have? Because just like that, Beaster with a double, Kirsch follows it up, and, well, Shenandoah, they had a nice hold initially on this hill, but they keep getting broken way too easily as Kirsch gets 3.
Kirsch breaks right back in. He's really playing well here in this last map. He found full streaks earlier on, back on 4 in a row here. Needs 3 more to get that glide bomb, the streak that will actually get seen used between these two rosters, because I don't think I've seen a single strafing run get used in the last 2 days. I'm pretty sure that college is now following those GAs that we see in the pro level where that strafing run is not being used. And Kirchy looking for 7, pulls out the pistol to do it. Will find the final kill, and that's a second glide bomb now for Florida Gulf Coast earned throughout this game. And Katie, at the end of this hill, we're at practically a tie game going to the third set of rotations.
It's got to be a tie game here as the next 2 ticks come in. Helpless, a nice pick to take out Justin. Stevo follows it up on the other side of the hard point, but Helpless, can you win this fight? A big one now. Every second at this point is going to get you closer to that 3-1 victory, but the push coming in from Florida on the top of the map now. Just 20 seconds as Kirsch calls in that glide bomb. Can he connect? Takes out Toxic, removes them from the point. 19 seconds for Shenandoah, but Florida, they can always try and take it away here, but the contest should guarantee at least another hill as Beaster and Tippin take 2, but still, I like this hold. Toxic just trying to waste as much time as he possibly can. No one can win it now, but Florida, they will be able to take a lead here and need only a couple seconds time if they can hold on to the rest of this scrap. And Justin doing a good job of taking everyone with him, but Sid able to get a double now. Take away some of that scrap time, 5 seconds, and they are going to be so close. But take a look at where Florida is.
Yeah, this is a big rotation here for both these teams. Florida has the full setup that they want over towards this P2 hill, over towards columns. It's really going to come down to Shenandoah only needing one break to being able to win this game, but Helpless right now is the only player who's close to the hill.
And a huge win for Helpless. Slides down the staircase, able to get on. And well, Shenandoah, they're the only ones in the kill feed as their team. Now time to be able to get on to the point. Toxic gets the trade, and Sid, they're hanging on for his life, and they get the job done. It's the slide down, the hip fire at the bottom of the staircase that gets them the trade they need to allow Shenandoah to get onto the point, break Florida's setup. What was an incredible comeback. Ends 250 to 240 and a 3-1 victory for Shenandoah.
I tell you, not the greatest start to Coach Zarin's career here for Florida Gulf Coast, but it's okay. You get a lot of time and a lot of kind of VOD to go back and look over, especially having 2 matches on stream tonight. Now comes my next question to you, Katie, because, like, I mean, that was pretty clear. A very good map from Shenandoah to come back and be able to win this one. Now Florida Gulf Coast, not only do they have to regain from a loss, but also have to go on stream again right after this for their second matchup. That is going to be a tough one to regain from, because you know that they felt like they could have won that last map there.
They absolutely could have. And again, though, my big question, Cruz, is really a critique of Shenandoah, which is you are creating enormous leads in that map 4 hardpoint, in that map 2 search and destroy, and they seem to then just give them up. The question for Shenandoah walking away from this is, yes, you won 3-1, but that hardpoint got way closer, and that S&D. So when you go back on that VOD, what is the main problem you're having? Are you just kind of, as I said, taking your foot off the gas, assuming you have it in the bag, playing a little more lackadaisical? What's going on? Or was it Florida's grit? Was it really nothing wrong Shenandoah was doing? And was it Florida just trying to claw their way back into the series?
Now, personally, in that search and destroy, I don't really have a big answer to you. It just kind of seemed like FGCU was kind of starting to finally win a few gunfights, which in search and destroy, you win a couple gunfights through the middle of the map, you get a big advantage. It's hard to lose rounds, right? But in that hard point in particular, I think it was just the rotations from FGCU. It seemed like they kind of adjusted a lot after getting spanked in the Tuscan control and kind of realizing through the first half of that Tuscan hardpoint how Shenandoah was playing it. The fact they were doing a lot of the same things that were burning FGCU inside of the control. They then started to adjust inside of the hardpoint. That's when you start to see Florida Gulf Coast really start to bring that one back, really start to put the big fight on for themselves again there towards the back half of that game. But unfortunately, it just was not enough for that roster at the end of the day. And if you're Shenandoah and you're looking overall at that, I think your big answer to that is just kind of once the opposing team makes mid-map adjustments, you need to then answer back to those mid-map adjustments a little bit quicker than you were realizing them. But, I mean, that just comes with time and practice.
Yeah, I mean, you got to tip it to him, right? It went the distance. You had the ice in the round 11. You have a strong 3-0 in the control, and then you have the ice to get it done, 250 to 240. And really, again, it's that play. Helpless able to get that initial kill bottom map, slide down the staircase, hit the hip fires, get on to the point, and just stop the time going Florida's way. Gave the rest of Shenandoah enough time to collapse onto the hill. And at that point, the damage had been done from previous hills. They only needed a couple more seconds, and Florida was not there in time to try and contest. So, hey, at the end of the day, my takeaway, they're looking good, and if anything, they're able to clutch up when they need to, and that can take you very far, Call of Duty.
Hey, I mean, I think my biggest takeaway is that Helpless is a very icy player on Shenandoah
Not
right
so
now.
helpless.
I mean, exactly. He is quite helpful, if you will. I mean, towards the end of that search and destroy, like you said, he found that big 2-piece in the round 11 to give them the numbers there and got the bomb plant down as well to close that game out. And then that 2-piece at the end of the hard point literally won them that map as well. So 2 of the maps for Shenandoah in that game, you can literally put on a big individual play from Helpless to close those maps out to be able to win them. Otherwise, we very well could have seen a 3-1 victory going the way of Florida Gulf Coast, because I don't want Florida Gulf Coast to hang their heads after this series by any means either. You were in that search and destroy, in a search and destroy that you very well so should not have been in down 4-1. You brought that all the way back. You barely lost it. A couple gunfights go your way. Inside of that round 11, you win that map. A few more gunfights at the end of that map go your way, you win that final map as well. So it's one of those things where It's just going to take a lot of time, a lot of VOD review, and a lot of practice. But then when you come back to it after, it's about how you rebound from the losses as opposed to how you take the losses in the first place.
I like it. I couldn't have said it better myself. And at the end of the day, right, you look at it, that 3-1 does not tell the story of how close this series was. But congratulations, Shenandoah. They take it 3-1 over Florida Gulf Coast. And that's going to be it for us right now, guys. We're going to go to a break. But when we get back, we're going to see Florida. They're not going anywhere. We're going to see if they can hit the regain going up against High Point Esports right after the break.